Hi everyone, Boomer here for Caravel Gaming, and welcome to something that we haven't done in a while, which is a Hex draft. There's been a patch recently on the Hex service. This video was recorded pre-patch, but with the new patch we will definitely be reproducing content on Hex. They've introduced quite a few new things, a brand new interface which we'll be going over, and they've introduced in-game trading of cards. So hopefully that'll make the game a little bit more attractive, certainly to people who don't yet have the cards, can potentially borrow them. Looking at this first pack, it's pretty obvious what we're going to take here. It's the Extinction. We're just looking at the other stuff that's in the pack. There's a Volcannon in the pack, there's a Burn to the Ground, and there's a War Machinist in the pack, so I'm pretty sure there's going to be a Dwarf deck in this pack, or in this draft. But Extinction is just way too strong not to take there. Couple of options that I've got here. The Guard Outrider isn't bad. Buccaneer is obviously really good. Terrible Transfer is pretty good if I want to stay on colour. I could completely cut Blood by taking the Terrible Transfer. However, Buccaneer is just way better, I think, than Terrible Transfer, so I decide to take that. I'm not too sure. I mean, you could go one of two ways at this point. If you want to go into a total control deck, you can actually just take the Terrible Transfer there and try and hoover up as much blood as possible and just go pure control. Taking the Buccaneer there kind of makes you want to go tempo, which isn't really the type of deck that Extinction's going to fit in. And if you have an Extinction, you're going to build your deck around it usually. As you can see, we've got another Terrible Transfer here in this pack, so I could have stayed way into Blood and just like cut Blood off completely in the first 2 or 3 packs. Great Squirrel Titan here is obviously the best card, but that would mean I'm basically going into 3 colours, which I think kind of sucks. However, I decided to take it. I don't like that pick, I really don't. To be honest, I think that my first 3 picks here should probably have been Extinction, Transfer, and then see what the... so basically I've got like all the removal in the world at that point. And I think that would have been a much more solid opening. This way I'm kind of just not committed to anything, and I'm not sure I'm a fan of these picks. Admittedly, I have 3 very powerful cards, but it's just not where I want to be. Here I've got Giant Corpsefly. I've also got Howling Brave if I want to go into Blood Wild. I'm not a big fan of Blood Wild overall. I think Wild goes much better with either Diamond or Sapphire. I take the Corpsefly because I think Corpsefly actually runs Murder quite close as Blood's best common. If you cast 2 of these in the early part of a game, it's very, very rare that you are going to lose. You get such a huge boost off it. Not much in this pack, really. Runic Monolith's a bit poor, really. Secret Lab I'm not a massive fan of. I know Maddie's a huge fan of Secret Lab, but I'm just not that big a one. It can be okay sometimes still, but it's so slow. I think if you're like pure control, you might play one. So I think at this point we're pretty much on the plan of abandoning the wild pick, which makes taking that Quasi Squirrel Titan even worse. I take the Devoted Emissary there. It's really good for synergy with both the Buccaneer and the Corpsefly. So what you try and do, because obviously a 4-3 for 4 is pretty nicely powered in Hex. So what you are looking to do is try and get value out of its downside. And in this case, Corpsefly and Buccaneer are definitely what you want. Not too happy to see a Ruby Pyromancer this late in the dealings. I decided to go with Shroomstraw here. Now, as you can see, the way that this draft has sort of developed, I could easily here, instead of that Buccaneer and then probably the Devoted Emissary or maybe the Oracle Sign, I could have 2 Terrible Transfers. And the Shroomstraw works very nicely as a control card. Mesmerize here is a very nice control card. Thing to take note of there was an Elimination Specialist in the pack. again, that pretty much means that there must be a fairly strong dwarf deck in the environment. I'm not too concerned about it, mainly because I think blood is probably the most well-equipped colour to handle dwarves. You can pick up cards like this, Sorrow, which Sorrow is a card that just really batters dwarves. You generally get sort of a 3 or 4 for 1 off this. The terrible transfer came back, and that was certainly one of the ideas for potentially taking the Buccaneer over it, is that there is always a chance that the transfer wheels, and I've got super lucky here in the fact that both terrible transfers, despite being the only blood cards in the pack, have wheeled. So it's pretty, at this point I would say it's fairly obvious I'm the only blood drafter, or I should be the only blood drafter at this point, because those other packs just weren't strong enough to not take terrible transfer. And also terrible transfer is fine against the robot decks as well, because it can be aimed at a Terrabot, and whereas a murder can't. So it's one of those removal spells which certainly once you get late in the game it can really start doing some very serious damage to your opponent's creatures, and it's also a life swing as well. Bloodbear is pretty meh. Rigid Buffalo is obviously a better card. I would have been tempted there to actually hate the Rigid Buffalo, because the one thing that these type of decks can be vulnerable to is the sort of really fast start from a diamond deck backed up by things like Solitary Exile and Gigantify. There's also a Wizard of the Silver Talon here. Pretty stacked pack overall. I'm going to take the Wizard because Wizard's really, really good. Although Blood Aura is also quite good, but I think that might table. Gigantify is a trick I have to watch out for. It's one of those things, just remember, if you're playing in a game like this, you have to watch what's in the packs, because whereas Hearthstone, for example, the packs are you and you alone, wow, this is really good. Corrupt Harvester is probably, I want to say it's the best Blood uncommon. Blood has some seriously good uncommons, but Corrupt Harvester is super, super good. Especially since I seem to be the only blood drafter at this table, it seems that, you know, Corrupt Harvester is going to be unblockable the vast majority of the time. Necessary Sacrifice if I want to draw some cards. Darkspire Enforcer is also fine, as is Mesmerize. I think we'll probably wheel one of those, so I'm quite happy just taking the Necessary Sacrifice there. It works very well with Shroomshraw as well, because Shroomshraw spits out the 2 guys when it dies, so you can always either bag off the Shroomshraw and get some blockers, or you can have the Shroomshraw just die early on in combat and then just bag off one of the naught ones and draw 3 cards. And at worst, if you've got a bad creature that's not doing any good, you just bag it off and the 3 cards will probably be better than that 1 creature. So overall the deck's looking fairly good, but I think that some of the picks have been a bit weird. The gambling on wheeling terrible transfer was probably a bit much. Choice here, Effigy of Nunzan, Darkspire or Inquisition. I think I want some 3-drops at this point, so that pretty much means Enforcer or Effigy. I decided to go for the Effigy because I'd rather have a 2/2 flyer over a 3/2 ground pounder, and one of the ways that this deck will win at the end is going to be through evasive monsters, so I want to start picking up some evasion if I can. Shadowgrove Witch is a decent drop here, 2/4 for 4. Counter Magic, I'm not a huge fan of in Limited. I think that if your opponent has an unremovable bomb, often it's a very good sideboard card, but it's not really that great main because it just gets stuck in your hand and you end up countering something irrelevant with it a lot of the time. Not really much in here that I'm that interested in. I would rather... I mean, Headless Executioner's okay, but I decide to take the Shard of Fate here. Reason being that I have double blood with Corrupt Harvester there. I don't have double Sapphire yet, but that could certainly come. Thunderbird is really tempting here, but I don't think my mana can support it. Also, I think that against a lot of decks, Thunderbird is overrated these days. Obviously, if unstopped, it'll kill your opponent in 4 turns, but that's such a rarity. And its mana cost is so harsh that I think that it's probably not what I want to be doing. Monkey of the Nine Tails is a really nice pick. If someone makes a Terrabot, or even worse, something like an Argus or an Eternal Guardian or some other sort of really horrendous bomb rare, you can transform it. And if worse comes to worse, you can always just transform one of your small guys like the Shroomshire or something into a 3/4, and suddenly you've got an attack force. Choice between Guard Scout and Oracle Song. I'm actually really short on 2-drops here, so I take the Guard Scout. Overall, the deck's looking okay at the moment. The Extinction is probably what pushes it to a a deck that's going to get to the final or further. To get to the final or win it. I think that, yeah, I'm also getting help with these picks because picking up Wailing Banshee 10th is a really good sign. As I said, I'm pretty sure I'm the only blood drafter in this draft. But as I said, this one was done a while back. You'll notice it's not on the new interface. So, and I haven't played Hex in a little while, so I'd imagine that this doesn't happen as much these days. I decided to take the Hex engine here. I'm not going to play it, but because I have nothing to ramp into, you'll notice the deck is completely, centered around 3, 4, and 5, sort of 2, 3, and 4. So I'm probably going to play 18. No, I'm going to play 17 shards, and I'm going to Hideous Conversion. I opened something like 5 or 6 of those in like a 4 draft period. It was terrible. But a second wizard is definitely welcome. The real choice that I have here is what hero I'm going to take. I have the option of Feather to give my creatures flying, but I often find that Feather's a little bit of a problem in Sapphire because most of your creatures have flying anyway. So the ability often is unused or not that useful. I think that Zared's ability is probably a lot more useful. So I could pick up a 3rd terrible transfer here. See if I want to, if I want to really play the control game, or I could take a chance on it wheeling again. Time Ripple's obviously a very nice card as well. Keeps me in the game early. Counts as a 2-drop. I actually think my shortage of 2-drops makes me want to pick Time Ripple up here and just gamble on the terrible transfer. Oh, what did I end up? Did I end up taking Command Tower there? Yeah, I don't like that. My deck's not really a Command Tower deck. But I do get lucky here and pick up a 2nd Corpse Fly, which I think is amazing. Corpse Fly is just super, super good. As I said, if you're on the play and you cast one of these turn 3 and one of them turn 4, it's very rare that you're going to lose. Mainly because 2 power flyers are really good anyway. But the fact that your opponent loses a card as well, they just get put way, way, way behind. And all you need to have at that point is you just need to have like 1 or 2 removal spells to back it up, and usually that'll be enough to finish the game off. So I've got a Polymorph Dingler, a Rockcaster, and a Buccaneer. That is harsh. And a Sapper's Charge. I think I take back what I said earlier about Corrupt Harvester. I actually think Rockcaster is the best blood uncommon, but blood has some very, very seriously good uncommons. And obviously Rockcaster works really well with the Devoted Emissary as well. So we're getting a lot of removal here, which I'm very happy to see. If I could get a Murder or something like that, I'd be quite happy. But considering we're already 4 cards into pack 3, I don't think I'm going to be picking a Murder up anytime soon. Well, Throat Cutter, but I don't have any Orcs. So, well, I've got 2 Darkspire Enforcers. I don't really think that's enough. I mean, my other option is Thunderbird. And I think Thunderbird's just so hard on my mana, especially when I want Corpsefly turn 3 a lot of the time, and that's double blood. I think it's the best of a bad bunch. Sapphire Charge here is really good, so I'll take that quite happily. Nice removal spell, nice to work on your opponent's life total, all that good stuff. This is where I take these cards and I'll end up killing someone on like turn 5 with a Thunderbird, just an unopposed Thunderbird. But we seem to mainly be going for sort of Sapphire Blood Evasion, which means that Extinction probably isn't the best card, but you can set up the battlefield so that you're not going to get crushed, basically. And there are certain decks like Dwarves and Wild Diamond Aggro where you might come out of the block slower, so you should probably play the waiting game. Choice here really between a second Shadowgrove Witch or a heavy welding bot. I was tempted by the bot just because of Sapphire Charge, but I think that that's getting a bit greedy, so I will go with the Shadowgrove. Also, I want to keep my land count down to 17. If I start putting 6 drops in my deck, I don't really want to do that. Here, I should take Charge Bot over Shadowgrove Witch. I've come to really respect Charge Bot recently, and there are some set 2 cards where they have an effect and you gain a charge, and I think that all of those cards, apart from probably the white one because it gains life, I think all of those cards are going to be high picks in Limited. So, and some of them will see playing Constructed as well, especially the Sapphire one which says draw a card on it. And the Terrible Transfer Wield, so we'll pick up a 3rd Terrible Transfer here. Now, because I've got so many Terrible Transfers and I've got a lot of double blood going on, I'm going to have to be heavy on blood in my mana base, which means that the Thunderbird, the Thunderbird's not going to make it, I don't think, into this deck. Take Headless Executioner, speaking of cards that aren't going to make it into the deck. Probably, I mean, I have 28 playables at the moment, with one of them being a shard, so I need to cut 4 cards at this point. I'd probably say the Zombie and the Shadowgrove Witches are probably going to be what doesn't make it. Really depends what my troop count looks like. Take a Fang of the Mountain God, but won't play it. This isn't really the right deck for that. Take another Determined Zombie, but I probably again will not be playing it. It's not really the type. I mean, if I come up against like a Ruby deck or something like that, which I'm potentially going to be scared of, I might sideboard them or put them in for my reserves, just so I can stem the bleeding a little in the early game. It's just a potential plan for later in the game. At least that's my excuse for it when I make a 1-3 on turn 2. I'm always a fan of playing 1-3s, as anyone who knows my Magic history will realise. Okay, let's just have a look. I'm putting in all the obvious cards first, and then we'll see what we have room for. Socketing my cards with Flight. This the Mazat Ranger with Flight is actually either with Flight or Swift Strike. It becomes a real pain to actually deal with. 1, so I need 3 more cards, I think. The Guard Scout and more than likely the 2 Darkspire Enforcers. Just so I can have some dudes. So sometimes you just need dudes. I think I'm counting up my troops at this point. So My deck's actually fairly troop heavy. My only spells are Terrible Transfer, Extinction, Necessary Sacrifice, Sapper's Charge, and Oracle Song, so I can probably get away with either putting in another spell or another creature. Probably get away with putting in, yeah, two Enforcers seems right. Mesmerize isn't that great when the mana going. To be honest here, looking at the way I built the deck here, I would be happier taking out the Thunderbird and putting in the Mesmerize. And this is probably the reason. If I took out the Thunderbird, I could probably go 10-6 on Shards with the 1 Shard of Fate. However, because I've got the Thunderbird, I have to go 9-7 because I need to have at least some chance of getting the Thunderbird out on turn 2. And I think that it upsets my mana so much, and that's one of the crucial things when you're playing Hex, is that you have to be aware of not just your mana curve, you have to be aware of your mana color distribution. Because if you look at this deck, you've got Thunderbird, which is 2 Sapphire on 2, but then you've also got Corpse Fly, which is double blood on turn 3 that you want, and you also have Corrupt Harvester, which is double blood on turn 4, Necessary Sacrifice, which is double blood on turn 4. Yeah, we chose the correct sleeves there. And you've got Extinction, which is double blood as well. So what's going to defeat this deck, at least in the beginning, is going to be its own mana, I think. So I'm up against a red deck or a ruby deck. Alright, let's use the correct terminology, shall we? And he chooses to play, which is completely standard for a ruby player. And our opening hand is really good, so we will keep that. I'm hoping that at the moment he's mono ruby with a load of X1s, because Zared is particularly good at wiping out those sorts of decks. You can see by the arrows there, I think I'm fiddling around with my Hex spreadsheet at that point. I really, I did in the past keep an extensive record with how I was doing with Hex, all those sorts of things. Decided in the end to stop doing it. The reason for that is that if you're monitoring the game like it's a, you're monitoring it like it's a job. To me, games are not meant to be jobs, and I realise that some people do make livings with games, etc. But I am not one of those people, and therefore, I am not going to treat my admittedly limited free time as a job. I will do something because I enjoy it. I probably should have made Sapphire there, just in case I top deck a Thunderbird on turn 3. Although Thunderbird against Ruby isn't fantastic anyway. Wrathseeker, I think it's probably fine just to Buccaneer that on turn 3. I don't think I need to use the Sapper's Charge. I think I can just put it back in his hand on turn 3 and it'll be fine. Yeah, I think this is a little bit premature because Ruby's got a lot things that are a lot more worrying than a Wrathseeker, and I've got a Buccaneer in hand. So because of that, I've actually now got no turn 3 play. So yeah, I think that making the Buccaneer there and bouncing his Wrathseeker is a much better play, because then he has to make his task guy, and I actually have, he has a Furious Taskmaster now, and my Sapper's Charge would have been a lot better than that. Plus I would have had a Buccaneer on the board, so I could have blocked at this point. So, I'm not a fan of the way I played that there. That was just a clear Buccaneer on turn 3. I was trying to play a little bit too much control there. I think also I'm making blood shards here, and obviously I get really punished because I top deck a devoted emissary as well. So I'm going to bounce this because it just means that if he wants to play it again next turn, then he has to tap out in order to give it speed. But you can see, like, by the fact that by the very fact I've played the way I did, I've played really mana inefficiently. I could have had a Devoted Emissary out at this point, and a Buccaneer back in hand, and my opponent, this is just the whole thing where you make a timing mistake early in the game can really hurt you. If he offers up the Furious Taskmaster here, I am really tempted to take it. However, because I've got Rockcaster in hand, I'm actually more tempted. I'm actually a lot happier just leaving it. Yeah, just Rockcaster his guy, because I can also Devoted Emissary the Rockcaster, and that would be pretty brutal. So now I've got board control, and I also have Zared's ability up as well. I'm actually quite interested in seeing how my performance in card games overall improves. The reason for that being that for a while, or if it does improve whatsoever, because this was still being played while I was, I was diabetic and fairly, just in a fairly bad way overall. So I'm actually hoping that. I'm actually really hoping that now I've cleared myself of it, and I will be making a video on how I did that and what the results are. That my overall, mindset and everything else will be improved by the fact that I'm no longer open to that. I made the Devoted Emissary here. I actually think making the Corrupt Harvester would probably be a little bit better there, because the Harvester just completely locks him out of the game. Having said that, though, a 4/3 is a big dude, And again, if he's got a Ruby Lance or something like that, I'd much rather him use it on this 4/3 than use it on something that's going to be, something that's going to be a little bit more worrisome. Oracle Song's a good draw there. I am just going to kill his 2/1 here. I want to keep damage off myself. And I'll Oracle Song up, see if I can draw. I get a Shard and a Wizard Mentor, that's pretty good. Especially when it's a Blood Shard as well, because I do still have all 3 of my terrible transfers in the deck. And you can see here, I've got so much life gain here. I've got the Corrupted Harvester, the 3 terrible transfers as well. So I should be really well set up against Ruby. Like, super well set up. And there's his Ruby Lance, so, or at least there's 1 Ruby Lance, so that gets some removal out of the way. He does have a grip full of spells, though, which is one of the things that's worrying me at this point. Okay, so he Bombsmiths my 1/1. It's one of the unfortunate things certainly in Hex, is that, you will... And that card's rather... Well, it's a little bit annoying. It's not too bad. I'm going to attack for 2, and then I'm going to make range... I think I'll probably make Ranger Banshee. Or I could make Harvester Banshee here. I'll make Ranger Banshee. Again, I'm... Oh, why would I not make Banshee there? Yeah, that to me is just a mistake. There's no reason not to make Banshee there. The only reason would be because I fear a card like Heatwave or something like that, and the truth is I just don't. If he has Heatwave, congratulations, but you can't play around everything. Especially with the Runic Monolith there, I really should be... committing more to the board to basically punch through it. The only reason that I would do that is if I wanted to play the Extinction. I think I'm basically worried that he's got a removal spell, but I think that that's probably being a little bit monsters under the bed syndrome, to tell you the truth. It can hurt for sure, but it doesn't need, it's not that bad. Okay, so he's got his 5th shard, so let's see what he does with it now. A rampaging Tarusk. Well, that's a thing, definitely. Now, I could block here with the Harvester or with the Effigy. I'm not sure. If I blow with the Harvester, I essentially only take 2. If I do this, I put a guy in the bin. I still take 6. Not too sure I like that. But then again, this turn I should be gaining 3 back. So, yeah. I think that it's okay doing that. I could have just taken 8. It's like taking 8 there is fine because I'm going to swing back and gain more life. And I would have had him on 1 at this point. Unless he blocks, obviously. And when he blocks, his guy goes in the bin. So, make the Banshee. Because I know he's going to tap down probably either my 4-1 or my 3-3, so I'm just making sure I've got enough forces on the board to win through a removal spell, and that's game 1. Putting in reserves, I'm actually putting a Sorrow in because Ruby decks tend to be fairly weak to... They have a lot of X1s, so they're fairly weak to Sorrow. And I bring in the Atrophy as well because that kills X1s quite nicely. And I'm going to take out, I would imagine my Thunderbird is definitely the first thing that should come out. Come on, Boomer, find the Thunderbird. No, not a Terrible Transfer. Why would you take out Terrible Transfer against a Ruby deck? Should be taking out probably Thunderbird and Mazat Ranger. Oh, I've already boarded out the Thunderbird, yeah, that makes sense. Still obviously not been tempted to put the 1-3 in my deck. Yeah, I decided to bring the Terrible Transfer back in. Yeah, I would board up to 3 Terrible Transfers before I board down to 1. I do apologise for the light thing, guys. We are currently in the middle of having or doing quite a lot of work on the house, so the electrics are a little bit fuzzy at the moment. Okay, I'll keep that, although it's not fabulous. See what he has for me. Well, he has the turn 1 Savage Raider on the play, so that's probably going to do 6 to me at least. But that's a good start. So because I've drawn a Blood Shard now, I can safely go Sapphire with this. And it also means that I can hopefully draw into something like a Phoenix Guard Scout on turn 2 and just blunt his guy. But there's always the worry when you're up against Ruby that his deck is just way too fast and there's very little you can do about it. But he doesn't have a turn 2 play, and that makes me feel a lot safer. I can just develop my mana. I have Buccaneer for turn 3 and either Corrupt Harvester or Wizard for turn 4. Ooh, a Gemcrazed Berserker. It's not got speed in it though, so I'm not taking a million. So what I'll do is I'll make Buccaneer and then I will bounce his 3-1 here. And maybe trade off with his Savage Raider and then use Zared to kill his 3-1. Just trying to get back a little bit of tempo. Buccaneer is so good at wresting tempo away. Try to imagine a card like that in Hearthstone, it'd be fairly good. I decide to trade here because, as I said, he only has like Wrathseeker and the Gemcrazed again on turn 3. Crushing Blow is awkward, yeah, for sure, but that means he can't play his guy again. I can still use Zared. So he's basically just passed his turn up for a 3-1. I think that's fine. I'll make the Wizard here, I think. Again, a bit more vulnerable to removal, but I want to get removal out of him if I can. Next turn I get to use Zared's ability, so that's cool. He attacks. With Terrible Transfer, I don't actually have to block here, but because he's used one Crushing Blow, see, that's what I'm kind of worried about, the whole Ruby Aura thing there as well. I think I probably should have just taken that and then killed it with Zared next turn. There was no real need to mess around like I did. But either way here, I'm just going to drop the Corrupt Harvester, I think. I think attack for 1, make Corrupt Harvesters fine here. He has the Gem Crazed in hand, but I don't really care about that. Wow, I don't even cast Oracle Song? That's terrible. Wow, I don't know if I click through there, because it is... you can very easily click through. Maybe I'm waiting... See, if I was sitting on Terrible Transfer there for that turn, why wouldn't I throw it? Yeah, I'm not convinced about my line here at all. I'm really confused. I should either have cast Oracle Song or Corrupt Harvester on my turn, or I should have Terrible Transferred. And again, I don't attack with my Senator, even though it can't block. Ugh. Obviously, it wasn't me piloting, guys, I swear. But I kill it and gain 3. But again, I've sort of given my opponent 2 turns here. Maybe I was a little bit worried about Rampaging Taurusk. Okay, with him making Crown of the Primals, which is obviously just insane, I am going to have to do nothing at this point. Because what I want to do is make sure that crown can't revert. So my plan at this point is to wait for him to play a guy, activate the crown, and then it's like activate the crown and kill the creature in response, so the ability doesn't resolve, and in that way the crown won't revert. It won't keep its one shot. It's this basically this effect will fail, and therefore it doesn't have its one shot counter on it anymore. So if you want to know how to cheese the system, that's basically how you... If you want to know how to cheese against Crown of the Primals, that's basically how you do it right there. But I've not really helped myself out with the way I've been playing in this, so I'm pretty much still just all in on this Harvester, which really should have been in play a long time ago. Am I going to go for Devoted Emissary as well here? It's like... I don't think Corrupted Harvester is my only way to win here, so I don't understand why I'm being so sort of defensive with it. But, you know, and I should have attacked with the Senator before returning it. So, you know, all these small, well, they're not small errors, some of them are big. So these sort of add up. I mean, there's the Ruby Land, so obviously I look really good now because I didn't play my Corrupted Harvester. But, you know, that doesn't excuse the fact that I was seeing monsters under the bed now. Now he's got 2 creatures in play and only 1 card in hand. I'm fine to just blow this extinction now. In fact, that Corpse Fly is the best top deck ever. Because I just 2 for 1 in with Extinction, then use Corpse Fly to take the last card out of his hand. Which is a burn to the ground, wow. So this guy's Ruby deck was actually pretty good. You know, he had Rampaging Taurusk, he also had the Crown of the Primals as well. So, you know, there's some pretty serious stuff going on there. So at this point, with the Corpse Fly, I'm just going to go nuts and drop my dudes on the table here, and then it's time for top deck wars while I'm miles ahead on board. So I'm quite happy being in a top deck war when he's dead in 2 turns. Well, Shard, he can make a 3-1. By all means, you may now hit me with said 3-1. I will not block. I will quite happily go to 14. And then back up to 17 when I make my Corrupt Harvester. I mean, I'm pretty much going to play what comes off the top of my deck now. Because if it's a flyer, it's just an evasive dude. And there's Phoenix Guard Scout to make sure that we're not quite lethal. He's got 1 more turn to go. but he seems to have run into a glut of shards here, and that is GG. So we are on to game 2 now. Fortunately, I've cut everything out for you to make this a little more palatable. But luckily. And opening hand is fine. Nothing too brilliant about it, but nothing too terrible either. And he's obviously playing dwarves, because you wouldn't be playing dwarves. You wouldn't be using that champion unless you're playing dwarves. He missed with his Gearsmith, which is always a nice start for me. Whenever Gearsmith hits, you always feel like you're behind. There's just there's no coming back. There is coming back from it, but it's just like they go Gearsmith into Sapphire Charger into Charge Bot or something like that, or even worse, into Construction Plans as well. And there's the War Hulk plans, so his deck's doing what it should do. That's about the work. Now, I could make the Shard now. If I make the Shard of Fate now, I definitely have these 4 drops, but I miss out on making an effigy. If I make the Blood Shard now, I risk not having any turn 4 play. I don't like that. I prefer going for the Shard of Fate now. The effigies, I'm not going to be able to race that 5/5, I don't think. I would much rather have made the Shard of Fate there and just attacked for 1. Because I'm definitely the control player in this matchup, because I have an Extinction in my deck. Whoa, what does that do? So every troop in his deck now draws a card and discards a card when it comes into play. T-Bird's actually a really good pull there, because it means I can hopefully start, I can start motoring at this point. Because if he doesn't have a removal spell for it, or he doesn't have a Terrabot, ugh. Well, I suppose better that than being used on my Thunderbird. But we know that there's an elimination specialist around at this point. We also know that there's various other really nasty things hanging round, so I don't expect this to be an easy match by any way, shape or form, because Dwarfs is probably the most powerful deck in Hex Draft, and if someone gets a really good Dwarf deck, then you are in serious trouble. Volcannon is almost impossible to beat, and if they have Elimination Specialist and various other sort of quote-unquote good things, then you're going to struggle. And he's going to get to loot through his entire deck as well at this point, so I'm feeling pretty far behind at this point. That effigy also makes things very worrisome for me, because now he's just going to trade with my Thunderbird, or at least he should do. Not trading with my Thunderbird would be pretty bad. But then again, he's got time on his side, so I personally at that point, if I were him, would not have attacked with Gearsmith. I would have made the 5/5, so I don't see why you'd hold on making the 5/5. He might be confused. He might think that the effigy is a robot. It's not. It's a construct, so therefore it can't be used on with the war plan. Anyway, Thunderbird dies, but now it's time to use one of these, and I guess it's got to be Mazat Ranger, because, you know, a race is a race at this point, and I have to win this race, basically. My hope is basically to draw terrible transfers later in the game to kill off his War Hulks and his Terrabots, and hopefully that will be enough. So he draws 2 cards and discards 1 card. Awesome. Oh, it must not have been in his deck, I suppose. Okay, so he's going to make a 5/5 this turn. So I guess I will just attack for 5 and make a Corrupt Harvester. You're always playing on the edge against dwarves, or it always seems like you're playing on the edge against dwarves, because you know, one burn here just destroy, one burn or like one sapper's charge or something like that here will just annihilate me. I have another flyer, and he has a 5/5, but I am ahead on board. You know, he is, if certainly if he starts turning that 5/5 sideways, I have him dead in 2 turns. So he hasn't quite got the, you know, the ultra blistering start that a robot deck can get. You know, where it goes of turn 1 Gearsmith into charge bot, turn 2 make a bot, make a war plan, make another either Gearsmith or some random bot of some description, and you just end up, he just ends up flooding the board, and you just go, I can't do anything against this. Makes like a turn 3 Terrabot or something, and you just go, yeah, we're done. So let's have a look at his attacks here. I mean, he can attack with the 2/3 and the 5/5. But, should I do here? Probably just block the 1/1, because if I can. I like eat the Gearsmith, take 7. Or I can just take it all. No, because the wizard isn't going to lead to me winning this game anyway, because it doesn't fly. So I'm going to just eat the 1/1. And he does have Terrabot, and that's pretty much going to finish us off here, I think. Without the Terrabot, I think I would have been fine, but the Terrabot is going to make this a little bit too much of a gamble. I can run the Mazat Ranger in and kill the Terrabot, but I'm not too sure how far that gets me. I mean, he surely must see that it's an on-table trick, but yeah, maybe he doesn't see it's an on-table trick. But yeah, at this point, I'm pretty much screwed. Unless I draw Extinction. It's like drawing Extinction here would be pretty cool. So I get to kill his Terrabot. I would just cast Necessary Sacrifice here. Yeah, just bin the... I actually am contemplating binning the Senator at this point, or maybe even the Wizard. Are we back in this? Probably not. The Warhulk costs 5, so it's not going to die to Rockcaster. So the awkward thing is that Terrabot costs so little there that Rockcaster would actually kill it. So, you know, and good game, guys. That's Volcanon, that's game. Scoop 'em up, boys. On to game 2. So that card's just ridiculous. And the only reason we're not playing Dwarfs is that Extinction was in the same pack. However, I feel a little bit better about this matchup after sideboard. I'm going to have 3 terrible transfers. I'm going to have the Extinction. I'm going to have a Sorrow. I'm going to have the Rockcaster. I'm going to have a lot of removal. And the thing is that the Dwarf deck has to play a lot of bad guys, like 2/3s for 4 and things like that, in order for its synergies to work. So therefore, I'm actually not tremendously upset at the prospect of... Game 2 and 3. Yeah, we're done. I don't know why I'm still playing this. I can't beat a Volcanon. I suppose I was looking for Extinction that turn. If I got an Extinction, I think I would have been on 1. And then, like any dwarf that he top decks kills me. So there's a lot of hope in that, shall we say? So Atrophy in, Thunderbird out. Shroom Shroor out? Yeah, probably. Thunderbird definitely out. I think Mesmerize is fine. Now it comes to the problem of taking stuff out at this point. And I also want the third terrible transfer if I can get it. One of the things I could try doing here is, because I've taken the Shroomshire out, I might take out Necessary Sacrifice as well. One of the things I could do here is go to 10-6 in mana now that I've taken out the Thunderbird. But it looks like I'm not putting in the third terrible transfer. I'm just going to rely on what I got. Shroomshire can be a decent defensive dude, but he's not really too outstanding. Wow, those last 3 cards were really good. Yep, so we'll keep this. It's got Sorrow in it, it's got the Effigy, it's also got Oracle Song. So the plan here is basically to wait and see what he comes up with. You know, every single dwarf player I ever play against makes turn 1 Gearsmith. And he hit as well. So awkward times are awkward. Good pull there. Now I'm going to make blood shards as often as possible now because I've got terrible transfer in my deck and I don't have Thunderbird anymore. And that's definitely something that I should be taking into account because Thunderbird really is, you know, as I said before, it's a strain on the mana big time. And most decks are wholly adept at dealing with Thunderbird, despite how good, you know, it's a good card. I'm not going to deny that it's a good card, but it's very easily handled. You know, diamond decks have repel, they have all their flyers and everything like that. The wild decks, which are probably the weakest to it, they have turbulence, I think it is, to destroy a creature with fire. They also have survival of the fittest, just to kill it. Blood decks can kill it in a number of ways. Sapphire decks have their own flyers. And Ruby decks have 1,000,001 ways to kill it as well. So I really just think it just dies, and that's the problem. Now I know that it's an old Magic thing, you know, dies to Doomblade, but you know it's really, really weak to removal. At this point I'm going shard in my mind. Although having said that though, if I don't draw one, I can always just Oracle Song, hope to draw a shard. Because I can draw any shard, because this isn't Magic the Gathering, so any shard is good enough now. Okay, shrink his Effigy. Yeah, I don't want to attack first, because he could just block and that'd be awkward. I can attack now, mind you. Although, no, this is still bad. Because if he blocks these 1/1, I can't cast Sorrow. But I don't really see a reason why he would block there. Unless he like completely read me for having Sorrow. But even then, blocking doesn't help because I just wait a turn on the Sorrow if that's the case. So I got a 2 and a bit for 1 there. Which I think is fine with Sorrow. You don't always have to get a 5 or 6 for 1 out of it. I think sometimes people can be a little bit greedy with it. I wonder if I'm ever going to hit anyone with this Wizard of the Silver Talon. You know, am I ever going to hit anyone with that 1/1? Let's try, shall we? Want to bet this will get Sapper's Charge burnt or otherwise removed? I mean, it's a dwarf deck, so Bondsmith's got to be in there, right? Charge Bot, good card. And a 1/1. And a Terrabot, okay. And I don't really have a way to kill that Terrabot. Well, I suppose I do. Yeah, I mean, if he attacks with the Terrabot, I've got Mesmerize for it, so there's no real big worry. Or I can just block here to prevent the 4 damage and then just Extinction. I actually don't think I need to Extinction here. Because I've got the Mesmerize, there's not really much point. I wish I'd have drawn a Sapphire Shard there because I could have just monkeyed my 1-1. Yeah, making Mass Outrange is fine here. And I just pass because I want to let him attack with his Terrabot. I'm happy letting, I'm happy actually having parity. If he has an Elimination Specialist, that's going to be really awkward for me, but, Oh, there's Volcannon. Well, I've got no, and there's Arena Brawler. I've got no option now. It's Extinction or nothing. Not too sure why Arena Brawler's in his deck. He might just have felt like he needed 2 drops, but it doesn't really seem to work with the synergy of the deck. Having to blow my load on this one, I've used the Sorrow and now I'm about to use the Extinction. And even then it's still a, this match is still very much in doubt. So it's what's known as the, by the way, I have Wrath of God attack. Yep, okay. And I get a couple of free points of damage in. And yeah, it's got to be Extinction. I can't let him have creatures in play with a Volcannon. I've got to make him rebuild. And it's still very, very doubtful if I can beat a Volcannon. Sapper's Charge for his first dude as well in play. But I'm just hoping he doesn't have a creature to play, because if he doesn't have a creature to play, I can just make Monkey. And because I don't really want to transform anything into a monkey. Oh, that's quite good. And my thing does kill it as well. So I'm going to take 3, but I'm going to gain 4. So yeah, you have to do it. Have to do it. As much as it sucks, you have to keep the board clear if your opponent has a Volcannon. So this is, I'm feeling a little bit depressed on this side here because I've used a Sorrow, I've used an Extinction, and I'm still, this game's probably 50-50 at this point. Another Blood Shard means I can't play anything in my hand. Next phase. Rather awkward things happening, shall we say. Yay, Sapphire Shard. Put the monkey down. Monkey. It's just a 3-4 for 5, but that is fine. He has a dwarf. It is going to die. Yeah, oh, I should have used Sapphire Charge at end of turn there. Oh, I've got Zared's ability, right, that's fine, I don't need to use it. See, my previous self knew more about this game than I do. Okay, take 3. It's every single guy he makes is 3 damage now. In with the monkey. And he must have a burn for it. Yep. So we are... back to parity again, except he has a Volcannon, so we're not at parity whatsoever. Okay. Ugh. And I should have made blood there, because there's no reason to make Sapphire. I don't have any triple Sapphire cards in my deck, and I do have terrible transfers. I just play it out there just for fun. I think this is more a tilt thing more than anything else. It's like, have a look at my Devoted Emissary. Now it goes back again. Fortunately, anything I play, I can just Devoted Emissary now on the same turn, so I can at least pay 9 mana or whatever to put my Devoted Emissary in play. Yes! Darkspire Enforcer, beast! Make that Devoted Emissary. I was waiting for him to burn, and might as well make the Darkspire Enforcer again. There you go, 7 power. All it took was 10 mana. I'm not sure what he has in his hand at this point. So why, unless he just has shards, but he'd surely make shards. That's the issue. So wouldn't you make shards so you can make 1/1s? Yay, Buccaneer. In for 7. And at this point I'm feeling okay. I decide not to make a naked Buccaneer there because if he has something horrific, like he just hard casts a Terrabot or something, I want a way out of this. Yeah, that thing. I'm actually going to... Oh, no. Well, I suppose he's only got 1 counter on him, so that's okay. Really what I should have done was use the Sapper's Charge while its ability was on the chain, because it can only use a... Yeah, see, this is the sort of reason for it. But it doesn't matter, because if that's all he's got, then I'm going to... win anyway. But yeah, what I should have done was Sapper's Charges 3/2 while the ability was on the chain, and therefore he doesn't get the chance to remove my guy with a 1/1. But it looks like we've got this anyway, because I'm going to Sapper's Charges 3/2. I'm then going to Buccaneer his Bombsmith, which is one of the more terrible uses of Bombsmith I've seen. I'm using the Corpse Fly just in case he has counter magic or some other thing that's going to make my life miserable. Oh, it's an Insight Fury, that's why it was stuck in his hand. And then Buccaneer is 1/1, and we are on to game 3. As I said, probably the weakest Buccaneer you'll ever see, but it was enough to push through, and that's all that matters. Okie dokie. I actually pull out the Atrophy for a terrible transfer here. Again, I'm really only thinking that his threats... I don't have an answer to Volcannon, so I just have to hope that I can sweep the board enough or get enough removal in place for his Volcannon not to be a factor. And that's pretty much all I can do. And... he's also on the play in game 3, so I'm crossing my fingers here that he doesn't come out in an absolute hail of things, because that could be awkward. And the thing that I should point out at this point as well, I think in this draft there was someone who literally just hoovered up all the rares. And just went sort of 3, 4, 5 colour, just with as much fixing as possible and rares. Well, I've got a Sapper's Charge and I've got a 3-drop, so I think I'm going to keep this, even though it is a little bit, it's a little bit body clenching if I don't get a, it's a little bit body clenching if I don't find a Sapphire Shard. But my opponent has mulled to 5. I thought he was going to make a turn 1 Gearsmith then. It was just like, not again. Oh, my deck's going to mock me, is it? So we could end up with a classic game 3 cripple fight here, where I end up with... he ends up with no cards, I end up with wrong mana. Never too upset about getting... it's like if you get screwed, you can always draw out of it. You know, you draw 1 or 2 shards and you're away, and you've generally got quite a lot of gas in your hand at that point. If you're flooded, there's very little way back into the game. Very funny. I decided to start killing his little 1/1s at this point just to try and slow down that 5/5. because the more I can slow it down, the more I can draw into one of my 3 terrible... I have the mana for all of my terrible transfers, so I just have to wait until I have the means, basically. Okay, make the Enforcer. And also next turn Zared's ability is going to be up, so he needs to have another guy in order to be able to activate that Warhulk. I think it's on 3 counters at the moment. Rockcaster's a really good pull there. So, yep, his thing has 4 counters on it and he's got no creatures, so in we go. I think I'm still playing 8 sources of Sapphire in this deck now, so bah. Oh dear. Well, can certainly still stay in the game. And he's screwed, but my sort of point stands earlier that if you're screwed, you generally will be able to draw out of it at some point. If you're flooded, you generally can't draw out of it unless you have card drawing spells. Whereas if you're screwed, you've actually got all your action already in your hand. So it's just a case of whether the tempo loss is, where the tempo loss is bad enough, basically. I don't just want to give him my Rockcaster at this point, and he already has a 5/5 now. So, we are looking at rather awkward circumstances here. He just throws his Gearsmith away, which, I'm actually happy with that because it's going to make his Terrabots cost more. But, 1 terrible transfer, and I'm still way in this game. So I've got 4 or 5 turns because I can always block for a turn or 2. So I've got 4 or 5 turns to draw a Sapphire Shard or a terrible transfer or an Extinction. So I have a lot of outs in this situation. So even though it looks a bit bleak, we're still just about okay here, but it can go very wrong all of a sudden here. Yeah, our 1/4 isn't things going very wrong. It's just fine. Well, there's my terrible transfer, and he is tapped out, so I'm going to take the opportunity here to just gain 7 life and dome his war plan. And I'm not going to attack because he'll just block. And I've already made a shard for this turn. If I hadn't have made a shard for the turn, I would have just bluff attack there. Because you can then just make a shard and shrink the guy. I moved straight over the Oracle song there. It's like, nope, you are 15 cards in and you have not seen one of your Sapphire shards yet. So sucks to be you, basically. Kill that. And I should bluff attack here because I haven't made a shard, so I should bluff attack under those circumstances. Although then again, he has the Sapper's Charge up at this point. He had the Sapper's Charge up then, so okay, so we're at a standoff until I can draw a Sapphire Shard. Well, let's see if I can get that Sapphire Shard out of him, because neither of these guys has evasion. A Wailing Banshee does, so... See, again, it's one of those things that if you've really got your head in the game at the time, you would know when and when not to bluff attack. And that was a brutally easy bluff attack that I should have made a couple of turns earlier. Yep, he uses the Sapper's Charge to kill the Rockcaster, and unfortunately, so he did make a quote-unquote chump block there. So I'm going to make Wailing Banshee because it can't be blocked. I think he looks like he boarded up to something like 40 odd cards. He's got 33 if you count the one in play, 4 in hand 7, 5 shards is 42, and he's got 4 cards. Yeah, so he boarded up to 46 cards. So I obviously didn't quite get the it right there. Only just noticed that. It's a really weird thing. But I think you are allowed to do that in Hex, if I am not mistaken. I think you can board up. Okay, Mortar strikes my... I'm thinking Mortar strike the wrong guy, and he got a corpse fly out of me. Damn. But hopefully that increases the odds of me having a shard in the top 3. Lol. Almost halfway through my deck, and I've not seen a card that is currently 20% of my deck. Apologies for the jump cut there, guys, but I just had a very nasty sneezing attack, so I didn't really want that recorded on video. So we're back to the action here, and he makes Sniper, which kills my 2/2, and at the moment I am pretty much fuming because, you know, because this is BS, basically. And looks like I might get run over by crappy 2/2s, but yay, I finally got a Sapphire shard. So what's the best way to do this? Well, first off, I'm going to draw some cards. See what I get here. Corpse Fly is really good here. Wizard might be a bit better though. He's only got 2 cards in hand, so as long as one of those isn't burn, I'm gonna be okay here. And I'm on 21, and I've still got 2 terrible transfers in my deck. So, alright, Bombsmith kills my 1/1 again. It's like, that 1/1's just never going to attack anything, is it? It's like that 2/3 is forever going to be a 2/3. But this does lead to a little bit of an opportunity, which I think I should really take. So, Sorrow it is. And let's kill the Sniper as well, just in case he has any funky tricks. And I'm going to Devoted Emissary and pick up my Wizard. Oh, he has a counter magic. That's interesting. Okay, give me that last card in your hand then. So I was correct in the first game to play around that counter magic. And the second card in his hand is a Peak. Okay, so he seems to have some sort of really weird control elements in his deck, which I'm really not too sure I'm a huge fan of. I would be a lot more happy. He's been just going all Dwarves. Dwarves really seems to be a deck where you want to go all in on it. Okay, Corpse Fly ho. And it looks like we've got this. So let's make some more flyers. And he's got no cards in hand. This 1/1 might actually hit something. Although then again, isn't he dead at this point? Or at least he's very, very close to it. He's dead. The 1/1 isn't going to get to hit anything. But yeah, eventually drew out of it and won. So we're on to the final. And we're up against Endless. And this is one of the... this is the deck I was thinking of. He is basically on mono expensive rares. Or just mono rares. I think he said he picked up something like... I think he said he picked up something like 6 or 7 rares. And most of them were Chase. Or something along those lines. We'll find out, I'm sure, as the game goes. I make Sapphire first because I could always find a Thunderbird or something like that. Sorry, I could always find the Sapphire Shard for the Thunderbird. Okay, so he has Howling Brave. As far as I was aware, I mean, at least he was saying this in the chat in the general during downtime. I think that he has like He just has his deck just a bucket load of fixing card draw and then just bomb rares, which can work if you've you know, if you've got the tools for it. It can work. Yep, Shard of Fate. I'm guessing he was probably picking those quite high because, spoiler warnings, he's 3 colours. Yep, adaptable infusion device. The fixing continues. Okay, I think that we will corpse fly him here and see what... because these types of decks, or at least ones that play slowly or more controlly, tend to be fairly tight-knit. It's like you pull, you know, very much like either a Jenga or a tapestry, you know, you pull one thread out, the whole thing falls over. That can very easily happen to these sort of decks, especially when they're running risks with their mana. They tend to have to value cards a little bit differently. There's his diamond. And is it the first of the bomb rares? No, it's an axe bot. So I'm quite happy for it to be an axe bot. Thank you very much. Oh, yuck. Okay, well, we'll kill the Howling Brave because that puts him a little bit back on mana. And corpse fly you again. You know what? I'm almost tempted at this point to buccaneer my own corpse fly so I can corpse fly him again. You know, you can always, it's like 4 cards to 2, and I've got two power flyers on the board. It's like his rares better be good to get him back into this. Now he's discarded 2 shards already, so it's very possible that, you know, there's in a conflict. Okay, fine. So I can necessarily sacrifice it and draw 3 cards. If he doesn't make a shard here, my guess would be that he's got 1 or 2 of his bomb rares in hand that they're just stuck there. So he doesn't make a shard, so I think he discarded shards over keeping his bomb rares. So in for 2. Now, I could make Thunderbird Buccaneer here to really put the screws on him. And especially considering he missed his land drop that turn, I think that's exactly what I'm going to do. Because now the Axebot costs 5 and he's only got 3 mana, so he can't make that again next turn. So that's just a serious, you know, that's messing basically there. That caused a bit of a mess. He peeled a Howling Brave, but that's fine. It's not really going to do much. He's looking at taking an awful lot of damage this turn. So what's that? 6? Yep, 6. Oh, he's got a repel as well. So, you know, he's definitely got the goods in this deck. So his hand is Axe Bot and a card I do not know. Okay, let's bag off the Inner Conflicted Corpse Fly and draw 3 cards. Pretty good cards. So whatever the first thing is he plays, it's dead. The next thing he plays... Yep, draw a card. Go ahead, dude. So, Axebot and another card I don't know. Okay, let's just attack with my 2 dudes. Let's Oracle Song first. Wizard's good. Keep that pressure up. I don't need to hold the terrible transfer for the end of my turn. I can always use it next turn. Well, he's certainly got mana, so he just remakes the Axebot. I'm not that impressed yet. And he gains 5 life. So, again, his deck seems to be a lot about get the mana right, stay alive, and just rely on my bombs. I just rely on drawing mana. Let's kill his Howling Brave, so we put him back a little bit more. Not too much more, but just a tiny bit. And yeah, I'll attack with the... nah, no point. Because I don't want him to make his Sensei a 3-1. Because I'm quite happy just making the Wizard a 3-4. Just keep embiggening it, as Lee would say. Yeah, when he does that main phase, I'm really happy with my current situation. And that's game 1. So he didn't really draw much that game. He had quite a few like bits and bats, but he didn't really. There wasn't really too much of a coherent strategy. He played quite a few cards, but none of it actually did much. So I'm not quite sure how to sideboard here, or at least put my reserves into the deck. There are a couple of things I could do. I could bring in another terrible transfer for sure. I could bring in Sorrow because he's running. It looks like he's running a lot of Howling Braves. Atrophy might be a decent pull in as well. I don't think I need the Shroom Shroud because, well, just because really, because it's not that great a card, and I'm bringing in Sorrow. Is there anything else I want to take out? Might want to... No, he seems like his deck might actually be weak to Thunderbird, so I'm going to keep it just in case. Because if I just manage to make a turn 2 Thunderbird and he doesn't have his Repel, then the Thunderbird will just go. Did you get that? Okay, and we wait for him to go. I mean, obviously, I don't know if he's going to play or draw first. He chooses to draw now that because he's got the, because he's got the dodgy mana. He's choosing to draw, and in sealed, that's often correct. Choosing to draw first, certainly in slow formats where mana is really important. But because I'm playing, he saw what I was playing. He saw I was playing Corpse Flies, Buccaneers, that sort of thing. So I'm playing a tempo deck. So letting me have the tempo can be a really big problem. But if his deck is, really hungry for mana, which it looks like it is, then obviously he has to do something like that. Okay, because he's on the draw, Corpse Flying isn't as effective, but it's still pretty effective. It's like, let's face it, Corpse Flight is a really good creature. And he ditches an Axebot, okay. Nothing too exciting there. Yep, drawing more cards. And this is something, it's... In Hex and in Magic, casting that turn 3 Arcane Intellect / Oracle Song / Divination isn't as devastating as it is in Hearthstone. It's like if this was Hearthstone, he'd have just lost the game right there. Because now I'm going to make a 4-drop, and it's still not great for him because here comes my 4-drop. So he's facing 6 power of flyers, and he's only about to make his fourth shard. So it's still not good for him. But in Hex, the cards exist that allow you to come back. Or your opponent can just have a really bad draw. That's certainly something that can also happen. Whereas in Hearthstone, your opponent always draws action, so therefore putting yourself behind on tempo is even worse. Mentalist is a good card, but not as much when you're behind the curve like he is at the moment. Yeah, that Howling Brave's going to die. So... let's Oracle Song first, just to see if we can get a little bit deeper. See, Oracle Songing when you're ahead is a burial. Whereas Oracle Songing when you're behind is a tempo loss. But let's get in for 6. And let's drop another flyer. I like flyers. Shockingly, evasive monsters are good. Who'd have thought? Maddie and I will also... One thing that we do have planned to do for the challenge, we realise that Hex can sometimes be a little bit difficult to follow, especially if you guys are used to Hearthstone. So what we're going to be doing is a quote-unquote beginner's guide to Hex, so you guys can understand what's going on the screen, and we're also going to talk a little bit about set 2 and things like that. Now, he's made Archmage Renlock, which is a really good card, and because he's also got the Mentalist, it also draws a card whenever it hits me. However, look at what's happened because of that turn 3 Oracle song. I've just gone guy, and he's now on 10 life, I'm on 18. He can draw as many cards as he wants. I am still way ahead here. All I need to do basically is not block. The time ripple from him is nice. He draws a card, puts my Ranger back in my hand, which is, you know, that's a nice nice little trick. I am contemplating an extinction here, but as long as I'm doing more damage than him, I don't really need to bother with it. I decide he does make an attack here, and while it's tempting to block with my 3/2 here, I don't really see the need because I'm just going to crack back with it, and if he blocks with the Archmage, bang on. If he doesn't block with it, he takes 6, goes to 4, and well, you know, he's going to block with his Sensei obviously, but either way, you know, he's on 7. He's losing this race really, really badly. I just put the Ranger back down. He's now on, you know, he's now got lethal damage staring him in the face again. I'm not going to block his 3/3. He can draw a card if he wants. You know, I am totally open to him drawing a card. I have Extinction and Necessary Sacrifice in hand. He seems to have drawn quite a few shards off that. Chlorophilia with Archmage in play is really good. And let's see what he does here. He attacks with the Archmage. Sure, I'll take 3, you draw a card. And he makes a device. I'm just here just going, don't draw Repel, don't draw anything else. And he bags it off immediately in main phase, and at this point I just go, yay! And he's very shortly going to concede. So that's it, guys. A nice 3-0 and a nice welcome back to Hex with a fairly nice Sapphire Blood tempo deck there. We'll see how that happens next time, and hopefully you guys are going to look forward to a bit more Hex content. It's good to be back. See you next time, guys. This is Boomer for Caravel Gaming.